Welcome to the Quick 10 podcast, brought to you by Trac, focusing on all things FedCon and cyber defense from different perspectives and different personalities, all in 10-ish minutes. Here's your host, Derek White.
Right, welcome back to another episode of the Quick 10 podcast. I am joined today by Carley Salmon, Senior Security Technical Specialist at Microsoft Federal and Defense. Carley, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. It's been quite the year. Here we are sitting in May, and I can't believe that it's almost June.
Right?
And then someone's going to listen to this in the future and say, I can't believe it's already whatever month it is. So, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been good. For those who are listening or watching, you can find these on your favorite podcast platform. You know the drill by now. YouTube as well. Subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. We've had, I think we're just past our 1 year mark of doing these, and we have a lot more to come out here in 2025. So today we're going to get into a fun topic that maybe frighten some people, maybe excite some people, or something in between. And it's going to be AI and how it impacts data security regulations like CMMC, but also some others as well. So this is a scab I think you like to itch potentially, Carley.
Yeah,
so
I do.
Yeah. So we're just gonna get into it.
What do you want to talk about?
So
it's a broad topic, right?
I know. It's just great. And you have a background that brings, I think, a really great perspective to it. So you spent correct me if I'm wrong, like a handful of years over at DCMA before you joined Microsoft.
Yep. I was at DCMA for, I guess, about 7 years, actually. Started out in their IT department and then shifted over to their cyber compliance, what most people know as DIBCAC, in 2019, and then was there until I left a couple years ago. So
yes, and so you've been on the assessment teams, you've been on the front lines of a lot of, and that was like, I mean, you've been at Microsoft now for what, 3 years, somewhere in that range? Does that sound
just about 3 years, yeah.
So,
time flies, man.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So 3 years ago, and then you go your 7 years. So we're talking, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, we're talking like a 10-year window, right? So, yeah. So you've been on the front lines. You're now at Microsoft. The AI boom is we'll call air quote, the boom is here. And we've seen similar booms to things like the .coms. We've seen, cybersecurity as itself was a term that just wasn't used. And that was considered to some people to be a boom. But right now, AI seems to be all the rage. So some are probably a little resistant. Some are probably a little hesitant. Some jump right in and probably ignore some of the things. Where do you see the impacts sort of now? And talk a little bit about the AI side from your perspective now. And then we'll kind of talk maybe more about where you want it to see in 5-10 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, in some cases, there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to adopting and implementing generative AI, because that's what the boom is, right? It's generative AI. It's not, AI's been around, like machine learning and automation. That's essentially artificial intelligence. But now it's that generative piece, that creating something from nothing, or doing the thinking or pulling around or noticing trends in how I write and how I speak in my emails in order to draft something that sounds like me. Which is actually fairly scary, scarily fairly accurate when I ask Copilot, like, tell me about my writing style and how I communicate with people. So, but it's how I expect it and it's how I want to be able to communicate with people. So I guess, I'm doing something right, I guess. I think the biggest thing is that it's not going away, right? So whether you adopt it today, adopt it tomorrow, adopt it in 5 years, you're going to be adopting it at some point, because every tool that we're starting to see, every platform, every product, there's some form of AI integrated into it. So, similarly, like, when I talk to my grandmother about, she's like, oh, this phone and this tech, I can't do it. Like, she had 20 years to learn it and she just chose not to. Mm-hmm. And so you don't want to be behind the power curve, because people are using this to get faster, more efficient, streamlining, being more productive. And so from a competitive edge, you don't want to be behind the power curve. And I'll caveat that too with I work in federal, so because of parity and because of FedRAMP processes and regulatory and compliance, a lot of things that are available today in commercial are not available for federal. And so trying to work with our customers to stay on that cutting edge with only having, half of what's available, because copilots are coming available, but they have Azure OpenAI that they can use. And so how do we use that while we're waiting for Copilot, if you will? So it's been challenging at times, but really interesting and kind of fun.
Yeah, well, like anything, right? It's you kind of already hit on that, but it's there's still a human element to how people
Correct.
live and grow and get with curves. And email, I always joke and say, everybody was raised the same way, unless you're 20. You've been raised the same way with how to open links, how to send emails. It went to a digital age, and no one was really talking about the security side of things. So now I think you could see more people a little hesitant on things like AI. But then when you bring
1000%.
it to not even just security, data security, but regulation, now we're talking about specifically defense, in this case in federal, is the capabilities of AI are great, but how to use them on a day-to-day gets challenging, specifically when it's whether it's CMMC or ISO or any sort of regulation around cybersecurity, people are looking for the easy way. Make it faster for me, make it more digestible for me. Are you seeing, Copilot being used the right way? And are there any cautionary tales on things people can be patient on, or just be a little careful when it comes to how you integrate AI into your cybersecurity program, if you will?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of I think it's like a 3-phase process, if you will, right? You want to have a strong cyber foundation. You want to make sure, the question that, I get brought up to most is, I don't, A, want my data training the model, and B, I want to prevent accidental spillages because, we say Copilot's going to turn on the lights. And so if your sensitive information isn't labeled, protected, access controlled, etc., then Copilot's going to be able to view that. So somebody who maybe they don't know where to find, Derek's pay stubs or your W-2s, Copilot, if your information is not kind of protected from that access control, Debbie in IT operations can find all of your, personnel information. And so, one thing we've been working on, and even before this really, is, that data security and, getting your data estate ready for generative AI. And that's something that kind of has been, a growing implementation across both commercial and defense. Even before Copilot came about and generative AI, we've been working with that. And so, I think it just kind of put more of a importance on that with generative AI. So that security foundation is really important, especially because Copilot, or like M365 Copilot, that's probably going to be the Copilot that most people interact with. Mm-hmm. That's our productivity Copilot. That our Copilots and Microsoft Copilot and agents, etc., are going to honor all of your security policies. So your access control, your information protection, your data loss prevention, et cetera. And so it's going to honor those when it's either pulling information, creating new products, or how that information is shared and how it's labeled and protected. And then there's the monitoring aspect of it too. You want to kind of make sure you're doing all of that. And so then like the second phase of like an AI adoption or evolution, if you will, is, using Copilot to its fullest capacity. I think one thing we sometimes see, and, at first I was very much in this boat, like using Copilot kind of like you would your Bing or Google search, like asking a simple question, find me, Quick Trac, Beryllium InfoSec's website. And so being able to use it to its full capacity, I think is also like the next big step, getting users accustomed to using it. It is, widely available across Microsoft, and I'm sure there's like a percentage of folks that are not using it every day or not interacting with it. I've only started using it more regularly over the past few months myself. So it's really like now integrating it into your kind of your daily tasks, your daily routines. And then it's the power of the prompt. That's going to be how you really get the most out of any generative AI. Being specific, asking what you want, where you want. If it's within your network, you can, tag or upload different documents. You can tag a person if I want to say, like, hey, summarize all the conversations I've had with Derek over the past week and any action items that I might have from that. And so I can tag you so it knows specifically where to look. And so that's optimizing and using Copilot to its fullest. And then I think like the third and kind of what we're seeing and starting to see as like that next level of AI usage are customized AI agents. You're starting to hear agents, agentic, more from different companies or different products or things that are integrated into those platforms. And so those agents are where you can then customize something specific to your industry or to your company. For example, like CUI labeling, a CUI labeling agent, being able to take the power of, like Purview information protection and going out and helping you label, cold crawling and labeling things that have not already been labeled. So different things of that nature to, again, kind of streamline, make things more efficient. That's kind of where we're seeing this going next.
And then the fourth phase is the robots.
Yeah, no. We call it Copilot for a reason. You still need that human element, yes. Right? I can have it draft an email for me, but it could put information that's like incorrect in there, or even like looking up some things in prep for today as far as like, AI regulations, because I'm still like familiarizing myself with those. Some things are not up, like, not necessarily in the right way or how I wanted it to be said. So, I mean, that's where you still have to look over it, but it's going to get you halfway, 75% of the way there.
Yeah, and we see people using them for policies, legal templates, and things like that, where you need human element. Otherwise, the number of times, how many times have you been on a call where the recap comes back and you're like, that's not what we were saying. But yeah, at least you can remember the conversation. I think the big thing too is we have the older generation, like you mentioned, that just, change is different. They refuse. They were learned, but now we have younger generation that same thing. You don't want them to fall behind on what will evolve into a power that will need to be used for efficiencies. And like you said, just communicating as humans still matters. Cybersecurity gets more intense as we CMMC as an example of something that will have to evolve along with the threats. And now we're seeing AI being used on crazy good phishing campaigns and crazy good technical attacks that we have to stay ahead of it. And I think you guys have done, Microsoft has obviously, you've been on the front edge of it, but I do think it is a learning curve and people need to take it by bits. I think that's a good way to say, like, you don't have to dive head first. Like, I don't think anybody wants the first iPhone anymore. Right.
No.
maybe let a few versions of it come out before you go head first. What do you see, just to kind of wrap here? What do you see? Where do you want to see things when it comes to, where do you hope it gets to in, say, 5-10 years from now, that you feel like maybe there's some good movement, but you're a little cautious in some areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's great movement. And like I said, I think like this next kind of phase of it is going to be these customizable agents. And that's really where you're going to start to see being able to kind of have some of that pointed automated remediation from kind of like triggering, or like, with generative AI, like if you think about Security Copilot, for example, right now, like that's primarily pulling information to you. It's not necessarily going to take those next steps in the standalone. It's going to tell you what to do, but it won't automatically do that. Now the agent, you can then have an agent attached to it where that will take the next steps. And so kind of streamlining this, like the circle, right? Like, so that an incident happens, you remediate it, or you do the root cause analysis, you update your knowledge base, and then, everybody now has it. How long does that take to get through all of that? You can do that. You can cut that time more than in half with generative AI and using agents to do that. And so you're having less of a gap from a knowledge perspective for your responders. And then also, I think, a good thing about generative AI, especially with like how, again, talking about Security Copilot again, is it's teaching. So you can have a junior analyst come in and they can be doing, maybe intermediate level type analyst work, because Copilot is walking them through what that process is, and they're learning along the way. And so, we do have such a large experience gap from like what's required to the level of experience that we have of people. We do have that gap in the industry. And so this is helping close that gap, which I also think will give companies the ability to be able to like hire somebody out of college that might not have the 7 years of experience, but because of the tools that they use, they can, only take somebody who has 1 or 2 years of experience. And so I think it's going to really help close that gap as well. So I think that's kind of where I foresee it going. But I don't see robots anytime soon.
Well, that's good. That's good. And if they are coming soon, then hopefully we have a way to stop them. That's what we'll use.
That's why you always say thank you at the end of your chat. So,
right.
the robots know that you were kind to them.
Yep. Listen, what's your favorite color? That doesn't work. No, that's good. Thank you for getting into this topic. It's a beefy one. It's hard to dive into everything, and particularly our clients. I know you're working a lot with the defense industrial base. They have enough things right now to work on. Is if you can find ways to help them make things more efficient, that's number one goal, and then make it compliant and secure, right? So, well, thank you. Where do you prefer people go if they want to learn more from Microsoft or you or anybody on the team? Where do you want to send them?
LinkedIn is the easiest place to find me. I guess you can link it in the show notes. Mm-hmm. Easiest way to like contact me as well. Totally share a lot of things that are going on that my team is doing. So that's the easiest place to get those details.
Yes, you are an active LinkedIn mate for sure, which is good. And you guys, your whole team does a good job. I know it's hard to stay too
ebbs and flows, man.
Yeah, too active on there because we have jobs to do. But well, thank you again, and we'll have you on again in the future, I'm sure. So for those that are listening, again, thank you for checking out this episode. Go follow Carley, talk to her on LinkedIn if you've got questions. And we'll have you on again. And next time, we'll probably be talking about some evolvements that have happened and reviewing where it came and where it's gone.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Looking forward to the next convo.
All right. Thanks,
Bye.
Carley.
Thank you for listening to this episode. And make sure to subscribe to the Cuick 10 podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on YouTube as well. For more information about Trac, visit our website at www.cuicktrac.com. That's CUICKTRAC.com.